breaking news for you this morning. Spirit Airlines.
Spirit Airlines.
Spirit Airlines.
Spirit Airlines officially is filing for bankruptcy.
The mounting losses, debt, and increased competition has left the airline with little choice.
For years, Spirit Airlines was synonymous with rock-bottom fares, bold yellow planes, and a no-frills travel experience. You'd hear jokes about the flying bus, read complaints about hidden fees, and maybe even spot a viral tweet from a disgruntled passenger. But Spirit wasn't just an airline. It was a business experiment, a gamble on how much people are willing to sacrifice for a cheap ticket. Spoiler alert, the gamble didn't always pay off. And in 2024, Spirit Airlines filed for bankruptcy, closing a chapter in aviation history that was as polarizing as it was fascinating. What went wrong? Well, grab a seat and don't forget your carry-on fee. We're about to explore the rise, turbulent flight, and hard landing of Spirit Airlines. Every empire has its beginning, and Spirit Airlines started modestly. Back in 1983, it wasn't even called Spirit Airlines. The company launched as Charter One, a Michigan-based charter service flying vacationers to places like Atlantic City and Las Vegas. It was small potatoes, a straightforward, no-frills operation designed to get you to your weekend getaway and back. But the 1990s rolled around and the airline world was shifting. Deregulation had turned air travel into more competitive, chaotic space. Legacy carriers were duking it out. Discount airlines like Southwest were finding their stride, and suddenly air travel wasn't just for business people and the well-off. Regular folks wanted in. Sensing an opportunity, Charter One rebranded as Spirit Airlines in 1992. They moved from charter flights to scheduled commercial service and started expanding their horizons. Florida became their playground, with routes to sunny destinations like Fort Lauderdale and Orlando. Slowly but surely, Spirit was carving out its niche. Not flashy, not fancy, but affordable. If Spirit's early days were about finding its footing, the 2000s were about revolutionizing the way we think about air travel. Enter the ultra-low-cost carrier model, the brainchild of then CEO Ben Baldanza and his team. Here's the gist. Most airlines bundle everything into ticket price. Baggage, snacks, seat selection. Spirit asked, what if we didn't? Instead, they sold tickets at rock-bottom prices, then charged passengers for every additional service. Want to bring a carry-on? That's extra. Thirsty? Buy a bottle of water on board. Want to sit next to your travel buddy? You'll need to pony up for assigned seats. It was controversial. Critics called it nickel and diming. Defenders argued it was democratizing travel, making it accessible to people who couldn't afford traditional fares. Either way, Spirit leaned hard into its identity. Their branding matched their ethos, loud, bold, and unapologetic. Those bright yellow planes were impossible to miss, and their ad campaigns? Equally unsubtle. Remember their Bear Fare campaign? Some loved the cheeky humor, and others thought it crossed the line. Either way, people were talking, and that was the point. Spirit wasn't just shaking things up. They were thriving. The airline expanded aggressively, adding routes across the US, Latin America, and the Caribbean. They were the kings of secondary airports, targeting places like Fort Lauderdale instead of Miami, or Oakland instead of San Francisco. And while passengers were grumbling about the cramped seats and hidden fees, Spirit was laughing all the way to the bank. Their profits soared, and their operating margins were some of the best in the industry. From the outside, it seemed like Spirit had cracked the code. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving in a cutthroat industry where most airlines barely eke out a profit. But behind the scenes, cracks were starting to show. Now, let's be honest, Spirit wasn't exactly known for luxury. If anything, it was the opposite. Flying Spirit was an experience, and not always a pleasant one. Passengers quickly learned that those low fares came with trade-offs. The seats were notoriously tight with minimal legroom and no ability to recline. Forget about in-flight entertainment or complimentary drinks. And there were the fees. Oh, the fees. By the time you paid for a carry-on, a drink, a seat assignment, your cheap ticket didn't feel so cheap anymore. The social media turned Spirit into a meme. Complaints about delays, cancellations, and poor customer service went viral. Late-night comedians had a field day. For every die-hard fan who loved the fares, there seemed to be 10 people vowing to never fly Spirit again. And here's the thing, reputation matters. In an industry where passengers have choices, being the airline everyone loves to hate is a risky move. But Spirit's success didn't go unnoticed. Other airlines began adopting similar strategies, blurring the lines between full-service carriers and ultra-low costs. Frontier Airlines, for example, ramped up its ultra-low-cost game, directly competing with Spirit's on routes and pricing. Even major players like American and Delta introduced basic economy fares, targeting budget-conscientious travelers who might otherwise have flown Spirit. Suddenly, Spirit wasn't the only game in town, and when your main selling point is price, competition becomes a problem. Passengers started asking themselves, why fly Spirit when I can pay a little bit more for a better experience elsewhere? And that's what they did. Running an airline is hard, like really hard. You're juggling fuel prices, labor costs, and regulatory compliance, weather disruptions, and 100 other variables. For Spirit, the challenges piled up over time. Their aggressive growth strategy strained their resources. Delays and cancellations became more common, frustrating passengers and eroding goodwill, and maintenance issues cropped up, adding to the chaos. Labor disputes didn't help either. Pilots and flight attendants pushed back against working conditions and pay, leading to strikes and staffing shortages. It's one thing to charge passengers for carry-ons. It's a whole other to keep them waiting on the tarmac for hours. By the 2020s, Spirit was struggling. Growth has slowed, costs were climbing, and the airline's reputation was in the gutter. Then came a potential lifeline, a merger with JetBlue. At first glance, the deal seemed like a no-brainer. JetBlue would get access to Spirit's routes and planes, while Spirit would gain the stability of a more established partner. Together, they could challenge the dominance of the big four airlines, American, Delta, United, and Southwest. But the merger was anything but smooth. Regulators raised concerns about antitrust issues, worried the deal would reduce competition and drive up fares. Spirit shareholders weren't thrilled either, while some arguing the airline should have pursued a merger with Frontier instead. In the end, the deal fell apart, and for Spirit, it was a devastating blow. The airline needed a savior, and the failed merger left them scrambling for Plan B. By early 2024, Spirit's situation was dire. Fuel prices were eating into profits, passenger numbers were down, and the airline's mounting debts became impossible to ignore. Spirit announced it was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It wasn't just a financial decision, it was the end of an era. For Spirit's employees, it was heartbreaking. Thousands of pilots, flight attendants, and ground crew found themselves facing an uncertain future. For passengers, reactions were mixed. Some mourned the loss of an airline that made travel affordable, and others shrugged, saying, good riddance. So, what's the takeaway here? Is Spirit's story a cautionary tale or a success story that just ran out of steam? Maybe it's a little bit of both. On one hand, Spirit challenged the industry. It forced airlines to rethink pricing models and made air travel accessible to the people who might have otherwise been priced out. In that sense, it democratized the skies. But on the other hand, Spirit's downfall shows the dangers of cutting too many corners. There's a limit to how much passengers will tolerate, even for a cheap ticket. Comfort matters, reputation matters, and in a hyper-competitive industry like aviation, there's always someone waiting to eat your lunch. In the future, Spirit Airlines may no longer fly, but its impact lingers. Those bright yellow planes might be grounded, but the ULCC model is alive and well, with carriers like Frontier and Allegiant carrying the torch. And let's not forget the cultural legacy. Spirit became a household name. For better or worse, it was the airline everyone loved to hate, but also made us laugh and made me cry. In a way, Spirit was like that scrappy underdog in a sports movie, the team that defies the odds, takes big risks, and sometimes fumbles the ball. Did they win the championship? No, but they sure as hell changed the game. So next time you're scrolling through flight options and you see a $49 fare, spare a thought for Spirit Airlines. It flew high, it fell hard, but it never stopped trying to shake things up. And honestly, that's worth remembering. What do you guys think about Spirit Airlines? Do you think they're going to be able to recover after this Chapter 11 bankruptcy? Will they continue flying, and for how long? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you like videos like this, leave a like and consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next one.